For this you shall drink bitter waters.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, I have to admit, I had a little problem yesterday. I had a little altercation in traffic.
Oh, no. I hope no one called 911.
Well,
did they call 411?
No, nobody called 911. But the guy gets out of the car and he starts chest bumping me. And I just looked at him and I said, "For this you shall drink bitter waters." And he went, "Whoa, I'm getting back in my car. You mean business." And he left.
And then you showed him. He saw what you had actually in the back seat, and you pointed to it, and you said, "From my cold, dead hands." And then he was off.
And then he said something about, "You get your hands off me, you dirty ape," or something.
You dirty MF and ape. I think that's
Right.
the 2024 version of it.
That's I snorted. I'm sorry.
Did you just snort? Okay, I'm just making sure that I heard that.
Snorted, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. That's John Combest, Combest. Every single day he puts together this list. For 23 years now, every single day he puts together this list of all the important stuff he thinks that you should be aware of in the state of Missouri as far as politics, government, all sorts of different stuff. Sometimes human interest, sometimes even sports. It depends on what the story is. But in the morning, we start to show off with this guy. His name is...
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what he does is he counts them down. Is that right, Casey?
Now on with the countdown.
And he's in a hurry to get moving, so we start off with...
In third place,
Picture it, Brad. You're at Washington University. You're a do-gooder. You're a young skull full of mush, as Rush Limbaugh would have called it. And you're studying at the Brown School of Social Work. You're a grad student who's going to change the world and fix inequity. And you were looking forward to your spring class on writing legislation. Well, I have bad news for you, liberal version of Brad. You are not going to enjoy a class taught by St. Louis Board of Aldermen President Megan Green. No. She will not be returning for the spring semester, Brad. That's according to Washington University. Brad, do you remember the controversy from the spring about Megan Green?
I do.
And you'll recall, Brad, it seems as though you may have a mouthful of little Debbie's. It seems as though Megan Green created a big hubbub there, Brad, because by all accounts, during the protests on WashU's campus, private property, about Gaza and Israel and defund from war and all these big anti-Israel protests, Megan Green, by all accounts, entered a Washington University building. Now, she has a faculty pass, Brad, so she's able to enter and leave as she pleases. Washington University was not happy about it. That one incident, entering a room or entering a building, Megan Green says she needed to use the facilities, led to a big hubbub about whether or not, she had a right to enter the building, whether she was breaking the law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Washington University says she will not be coming back. But here's their excuse, Brad. WashU says that every individual school, so you think Brown School of Social Work, law school, undergrad arts and science, every individual school at WashU gets to make their own faculty hiring decisions. And according to the Brown School of Social Work, no longer will elected officials serve as adjunct professors. Megan Green, for her part, here's her quote in the Post-Dispatch, and this piece is brought to us by Monica Obradovic of the Post-Dispatch. She says, "It feels very targeted. There are others in elected offices who hold positions at the university. They just don't happen to be adjuncts." So the bottom line is Megan Green is not coming back to teach this class, a very specific class on writing legislation. I'm sure she's a foremost expert at it. If you're a state legislator or a member of the Board of Aldermen, you're probably pretty well-versed in writing legislation. I'm sure there's no doubt she was quite a good adjunct professor. But WashU is using the elected official thing as an excuse, Brad, to keep her from coming back.
Well, okay, couple questions for you. Was she one of the ones, she was not arrested then, correct?
I don't believe she was arrested, no.
Okay, so her thing was she had her faculty pass, probably like a key card kind of deal, right? And she got into the building because she said she had to go potty, right?
That's exactly right, yep.
Okay. What's wrong with that? I'm not trying to defend Megan Green, but was it because of the fact that she had no other reason of being on campus other than the protest? Was that part of the issue?
Yeah, that was it. And the provost, it says here in the June 24th email, the campus or the university says that Green refused to comply with multiple police orders to leave, interfered with police efforts to secure campus, and entered a locked building after being told to leave.
Okay. So it wasn't like she just driving by on Forsyth and said, "Oh, I gotta go. My legs are crossed."
That's exactly. And you may recall from Post-Dispatch and St. Louis Public Radio and other coverage, like she had a pretty high profile there. Like she's been pretty outspoken about this issue.
Right. But she didn't get the silver handcuffs. They're the bracelets.
She absolutely did not. Now it seems to me, Brad, that WashU is looking for an excuse to not have her back. And the Brown School of Social Work is able to say, okay, here's an asterisk we can put on it so we don't look like we're just being mean to Megan Green. I think it would be a little bit more transparent if they just said, look, you badmouthed us in the media. You're causing trouble. We don't want you back. Okay. But I guess if you work for a school of social work, you've taken so many mediation classes and social emotional learning classes that you would never be that direct.
Okay, but from our previous conversations about another person who has nothing to do with this, Jason Rosenbaum, but here's my connection. I asked you the other day, Jason Rosenbaum said on Friday he's a member of two unions, CAW, Communications, or CWA,
CWA, yeah.
Communications Workers of America, and SEIU. Isn't she an SEIU person if she works at WashU?
I don't know. That's a great question, Brad. If so, I have a feeling a union grievance might be coming up.
Excuse me.
I don't know. It seems like a reasonable policy for the school to have. Well, I don't think anybody questions whether it's a reasonable policy. It just seems like this is very much directed at Megan Green. They clearly don't want her coming back.
Well, I'm sorry I had to cough there. Didn't get the mic down instead. But once again, you stole my thunder. Can't they file a union grievance? Hey, you're dismissing one of our union members. Show cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I don't know, Brad. The university's been in a really hard spot there because you've had decades of support from the Jewish community. Most of the white kids, point of fact, at WashU, only 15% of kids my freshman year were from either Missouri or Illinois. That included the Chicago area. Most of the white kids from St. Louis, almost all the white kids from St. Louis were Jewish. So we've had a huge amount of support from the Jewish community, which puts them at a really hard spot when you have all these Palestinian protesters.
See, that's interesting because, we've talked about this before. Both my mother and father graduated from WashU way back when, back in the century before the century we're in right now. And they talked about the fact that I think my dad said it was like 80% local people at the time. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I believe it was. And WashU saw a real ascent through the 60s, 70s, 80s. I'm not sure exactly where we are in the rankings. I say where exactly the school is in the rankings now. We were in the top 20 when I was there. And it was largely a lot of kids that didn't get into Ivy League schools, had to settle for WashU. It was very few. I would describe them as very few aspirational students. There was one other kid from a Hazelwood school. She got one of those black handout scholarship things. But then some of us got there on merit. And for most of the students, they had just been rejected by Ivy League schools.
Well, John, I think I've mentioned this to you before because I'm going to make you eat your words there.
What's that?
I, as a Mocha Java person of color, I was offered a 4-year full tuition scholarship to Washington University and turned it down. How about that?
You did. And if you watch the footage of that invitation that Brad got from the dean of the engineering school, it is in black and white because it was in the 1940s.
It was. Okay, let's move on.
Up a notch to number 2.
Another favorite topic of ours, Brad, the stacking of marijuana taxes went before a judge yesterday. And the crazy thing about this, Brad, is that folks have been arguing now about whether or not when Amendment 2 says that local governments can stack marijuana taxes or have the right to tax on top of the existing 6% state tax, does that include a county and a municipality? But if a county gets there first, can a municipality add the tax? Brad, the fascinating data point that I learned from this piece, this is from the Missouri Independent. And to give them credit, as we often do, they have a fantastic cannabis reporter named Rebecca Rivas. And she lays out the taxes in Missouri that are the highest. Okay, what city do you think has the highest tax on cannabis products?
Ladue.
That's a great guess, and the answer is no. I'll just tell you. Hazelwood and St. Anne. The total combined tax, Brad, if you go and buy marijuana, 17.988%.
Is that just local?
No, that's total. That's a combined total.
Well, no. Hold on a minute now. Okay, let's break this down. They pay Missouri sales tax, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and then they put the state sales tax on it, or the marijuana tax, which is what was it? Was that 12 or 6%?
It's 6%.
6%. Okay, I thought the munis were locked in at 3%. No.
I don't know. So it says here, attorneys, blah, 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 said that. In this case, St. Louis County and the city of Florissant to both add taxes, resulting in a 14.988% sales tax rate. And then Hazelwood and St. Anne have 17.988.
But is that in addition to the regular sales tax?
No, that's the total rate, Brad.
Well, but that doesn't make sense because the regular sales tax is going to be like somewhere, depending upon the muni, like 9-10%, right? Okay, so if you put 9 or 10% on there, and then you put in 6% for the state and 3% for the muni, that puts you at like 19 or 20%, right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm not a math guy, Brad, but it seems like 6 and then sales tax and then 3 plus 3 would be 12, and then it seems like it would be in the neighborhood of 18%. I don't know. Folks who want to break down the numbers can go take a look at Rebecca Rivas's piece.
It would actually be more than that because let's say like the thing they fought with both Florissant and St. Charles County was the aspect of once again, let's for the sake of argument, let's say the sales tax is 10% because it varies from muni to muni. Okay. And actually, it varies from address to address. Ask anybody in O'Fallon. You can go to 2 stores who are next to each other and pay a different sales tax rate. That's a whole nother crazy story. But let's say it's just for the sake of argument, it's 10%. Okay, 6% for the state puts it at 16. Then 3% for the muni puts it at 19. Then 3% for the county puts it at 22, right?
Yeah, you're right. Your math is correct, Brad.
Well, see, I'm wondering if what you're saying is that when they're saying it's 17%, that the muni just said, hey, we're not going to charge 3%, we're going to charge 12%.
Yeah, maybe they did. I'm not, and I think folks that want to go through and do the math should check out Rebecca Rivas's piece in the Missouri Independent. The idea, Brad, is that yesterday the court was debating whether or not to uphold the May ruling, and in the May ruling, the court said, hey, counties can also, municipalities can also add an additional tax on top of the county tax. So there was an appeal of that, and that's the case that took place yesterday.
I'm not, me, I'm the libertarian kind of guy, but this is once again poster child for what's wrong with constitutional amendments that end up, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, I do know.
This never goes away. And imagine what the sports betting and the abortion thing. Okay, what hidden crazy different rabbit holes are in those legislations as well too? You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you mean. And real quick, the opener, the lead for Rebecca Rivas's piece says the court debate, blah blah blah, sounded similar to a grammar class on conjunctions and comma placement because the way that is written, it's the definition of and. Does and mean in addition to, or does and mean a separate clause? So, I mean, when you talk about, you would think that these, on one hand, they're written very craftily to help certain companies, like, for example, in the case of Amendment 2, to help FanDuel and DraftKings. But on the other hand, sometimes the language is so sloppy that people just continue debating about it.
Do you know who they need to bring in to solve this problem?
I don't know.
Bill Clinton. Because he
tell the story, Brad.
During the Lewinsky situation, he debated what the definition of is. Remember that famous?
I do remember that. You know who wasn't wearing a blue dress, Brad? The subject of story number 1.
Was that Rebecca Rivas?
It was not.
Okay.
The number 1.
Big Bo stomping on my Trump Force One. Big Bo stomping on my Trump Force One. Missouri's own Senator Eric Schmitt. I started to say Bridgeton's own Eric Schmitt, was on Air Force One over the weekend, Brad. Did you know that Eric Schmitt was in Butler, Pennsylvania with Donald Trump?
I did, because I heard him on a Reardon show, was either yesterday or Monday. I can't remember which one.
Oh, nice. Now, the interesting thing is, over the weekend, I looked for mainstream media coverage talking about the fact that Missouri's U.S. Senator was on Trump Force One, was traveling with Donald Trump and attending the historical rally, the return to Butler. Of course, from what I saw, Brad, no Missouri mainstream media covered that visit. Can you imagine if Claire McCaskill was at an event with Barack Obama? You don't have to imagine. It happened all the time, and Missouri mainstream media went nuts. Thankfully, Eric Schmitt went on Annie Fry's show, Brad. I have a link to the podcast. I have a link to the YouTube. And Schmitt talked about what it was like to be in Pennsylvania, meeting Elon Musk, having conversations with Donald Trump, Donald Trump's Spotify playlist. What's on Donald Trump's Spotify playlist? Got to listen to Annie Fry's show to find out, Brad. So I am glad you mentioned Reardon. I didn't know that Schmitt was on Reardon's show, but I'm glad to know that Annie Fry and others in conservative media actually pay homage to the fact that we had one of our very own senators hanging out with Donald Trump.
I'm not trying to give you any hints, but I'll just give you initials. GNR. How about that?
You did remember? Wow, that's true. I was kind of hoping that Trump was listening to Bon Jovi. I was never a Guns N' Roses guy. I was more of a Bon Jovi guy. But, it might have been on the playlist too.
Maybe it was Annie Fry I was listening to. But here's the interesting thing. He said that the estimates, and I've never heard this before, he said there were 100,000 people there.
He said 105,000 people, Brad.
I mean, and you're exactly right. It's to the point where, first off, okay, think about this for a minute. Let's say you had a terrible car accident where you were almost killed, okay? And once again, I can speak to this firsthand. There is a spot on 270 where every time I go by, I cringe because I was almost killed in 270. That's a whole other story, okay? I don't necessarily want to go there, but yet Trump triumphantly shows back up to the place where he was almost killed, and it's like, no big deal. Yeah, no big deal. Now this time he had bulletproof glass around it, which is a whole different thing, and they had sniper. I think they were up to sniper team 46 at the event or something like that. But man, it was,
and it was great because, as Schmitt said, we're sending the message that we will not be deterred. President Trump will not be deterred from his mission. He will not let the other side win. He will not let the voices of terror and chaos win, Brad.
I don't want to sound like Brad the Trump fanboy, but the whole thing is put yourself in the situation where you almost get killed. You are hit by a bullet, and luckily for him, it was not, it was to his ear, which once again, it's got to hurt. He bled pretty bad. You saw all the blood on his face. And imagine the fact that instead of like cowering on the ground and go, oh my God, there's somebody shooting at me, he gets up and he starts fist pumping, fight, fight, fight. I'm going like, that guy is cut from a different piece of cloth. If you hate him, if you love him, you have to admit he is like just a different person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's, as the kids say these days, Brad, he's built different.
I think I used that when I was a kid, but I usually it was about.
That's what your teachers that put you in a helmet at elementary school told you, Brad. You're just built differently, Brad.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything more. Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?